Okay, so I got a rant. I got a rant. So somebody asked me today, like, um, what does what I'm doing now have to do with what I've been doing in the past? And it's actually my coach. And so I'm going to rant here in this video about what I shared with her, but not in the same context in which I shared it with her. But this is the new download that came to me as I'm preparing for my day to go downstairs and do my work, right? At the boutique. So one of the things that came to me is that people are constantly asking me, like, so, like, what are you doing? Like, I thought you were doing birth work and blah, 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 because, it may look conflicting because I'm not sending out these massive emails to tell everybody what the hell is going on in my life and what I'm doing right now. And I'm not publicly having these big conversations. But let me tell you what I'm doing. I'm transitioning from an identity that I feel like for me, I had a lot to offer, but the way that I wanted to offer what I had was not being well received, right? And what I realized over time in working with women is that, and especially because I'm in this program for to receive my degree in biocultural anthropology and human development. And one of the classes is about wellness. And so the more and more I'm diving in, because you got to practice what you preach, right? And the more and more I'm diving in, I'm realizing, like, whoa, we have such a hard hurdle to a degree to get over when it comes to maternal and child health, especially for Black women, right? And what I realize is that we have so much baggage to unpack as it relates to our own health and well-being that we don't really get the opportunity to really sit back and relax and reflect. And for those of us who have done that kind of work, we have a different lens that we look at through this experience. And so what I have developed over time is a lifestyle. And it was based upon my own particular lifestyle, right? And what I originally believed is that if you can garner the trust of the community based upon your practices and consistency, then you can create leverage within the community to where they would be in support of you, right? And so to wrap all of this up into a big pretty bow, I'm no longer practicing birth work the way that I was practicing before, because I came to some very rudimentary thoughts and ideas around the reasoning why we continue to have such poor outcomes. Number one begins with menarche. When we do not culturally represent the rite of passage of bloodletting from the womb of a young girl, we don't get to acknowledge her ancestral pathway moving forward, meaning that one day she's going to be an ancestor. One day she's going to be someone who is looking out and sending us messages and information. We don't compute that far, right? So when we don't compute that far, we don't honor her blood, her moon. We don't honor her in childbirth besides a baby shower. Now we're doing gender reveals and all the different things, but we don't do closing ceremonies for her after she has a baby. We don't do naming ceremonies for our children because we don't ask nobody about what the names are. We ask social media. We don't do cultural things that really represent the full bounty of it. And we're also not eating properly. We don't have proper nutrition. We're sedentary. We're not working out. We're overweight. And I know people talk about, oh, you body shaming. No, I wore a size 18 for a long time in my life. Okay, now if you go over that, that's your business, but I could not get over that. Okay, and so in my young life too. So when I talk to you guys about this, I'm not talking to you about this from a place where I'm trying to degrade you or condemn you. I'm talking to you from experience and what I've learned and what I've shifted and changed in my own mindset to help support and serve the community the way that I felt like my support could be useful. And so what I've done over these last 7 years in working with contraception, I've learned, like, oh my gosh, it's not about the contraception. It's all about the education. It's all about the accessibility to education. And if the education ain't really out there for the people, then you got to be the person out there for the people giving the education. So in 2024, when I did the biggest outreach that I had done, and it was over a 6-month period. Not that I wasn't doing outreach before then, but I was very deliberate, because what I've learned as a researcher, that part of my biggest downfall had been I was trying to research all of these things. But then I started to get to the root of it. And the root of it is that women didn't understand their cyclical patterns. You don't need birth control if you know how to track. If you know when you're fertile, you don't need that. If you have a regular cycle, you don't need that. And most women have regular cycles. And for the women who have hormone imbalances and do not have regular cycles, who have other impeding issues within their cycles, a lot of it has to do with fitness and nutrition. And I don't give a what nobody say, PHUCK, okay? I don't need to hear no arguments about that, because I understand and I know as well, because in 2017, I was diagnosed with ovarian cysts. Those ovarian cysts were the catapult for me to shift not what I thought was a good diet into something more intensive, because I needed to get that thing off my ovaries, which I had on both, but one had ruptured. I needed to heal my body, and I knew in order to heal my body, I had to make some changes, because I was not going to have no surgeries, okay? My grandmother told me, leave here with what you came with. She died at 106, okay? And so I guarantee you that when you take the mindset to shift the things into perspective that you really say you want to do, all of this work for me is still preconception work. I'm still a birth worker. But the way that I work with birth now is through blood, water, and spirit. And if I'm not able to articulate that in the highest ways, then sometimes it might just not be for the people who are hearing it, but for the people who have yet to hear it. And so when I created Pretty Period Boutique, I didn't understand that it wasn't just going to be moon cycle jewelry, that I'm creating this handcrafted jewelry to sell to people to track their cycles. Because before I was selling cycle beads, right, which are little plastic beads that tell you where you are in your moon cycle. But I realized that when I talked to the company, I was like, listen, y'all marketing this all wrong. What can I do to help y'all to really leverage that? So I took a stab and I said, I'm going to make handcrafted jewelry, because people wanted handcrafted jewelry. They were like, can I customize? Can I make my own? So I said, yes. And that's what I started doing. Then I said, oh, well, we need to be making this into parties, because people are just not interested in just coming and just, wooing about the information. People want to celebrate it. So I started hosting first period parties. The first period parties turned into ladies' nights out. Y'all going to the club and getting fucked up. No, come over here, have your champagne, your wine, or whatever, and we're going to have it in minimal, okay? Because y'all not going to be here drunk and falling all over the place, tearing up my stuff. But what that led into was like, oh, shit. Because now the women are coming, they saying, well, listen, my cycle is messed up. I don't even know if I can make no jewelry and blah, blah, blah. And so in the consultations, I started to learn that the women were not just... They were not just having inconsistent cycles. They were having inconsistent patterns based upon based upon the cycles of life that they had been experiencing, and they were just looping them. So when you say, oh, well, my mama had bad cycles and my grandmama had bad cycles, and when you go and well, tell me about your mama. Tell me about your relationship with your mama. Tell me about your first period. Tell me about your grandmama. Tell me how was your mama's relationship with a grandmama? Then you start hearing. Okay? You start hearing. The spirit start letting you hear. And if y'all don't know already, then I'm going to tell you now, I am a medical intuitive. That means that when I hear you, I'm not just listening to what you're saying out of your mouth. I'm also looking at the body language. I'm also listening to the ancestors telling me, okay, well, this is what this is. This is what this is. And so as I start to intuit and start talking and having these outward conversations and expressions with these women, what they started to share with me, I started to intuit and say, this is what I'm hearing. Okay? And you tell me if I'm right or if I'm wrong. And when I would tell them these things, they would be like, oh my God, like ain't no way you would have knew that, because that ain't what I told you. So when I start to move in this energy, I start to say, oh my God, it's so much bigger than what I'm just thinking. I'm mad and crying because I feel like I've invested a lot of time and energy in things that not necessarily were unnecessary, but were ways for me to get to where I'm at right now. So over these last 6 months, I've been really focused on my fitness. And I've learned, because I've had to do this, because I'm also perimenopause. Everybody's perimenopause ain't the same. Everybody's menopause ain't the same. But one thing that is linked to that is the cyclical patterns that we produce. And when we learn how to untie and reset our cycles, we learn to have better outcomes, better cycle outcomes, better cyclical outcomes. Birth is also a cycle. Postpartum is also a cycle. Breastfeeding is also a cycle. And if you've ever breastfed, you know you don't have no bleed cycle if you are a ecological breastfeeder, which is also contraception, which is also what I would teach to women that I was working with in my family planning clinic. So it's 10:44 on the clock right now, 1:44. Let me tell you, this work is not happenstance for me. And for those of you who don't know me, y'all gonna get to know me, because now is the time for me to be able to produce. I've been doing this for over 10 years. My oldest is 13. It was his birth, or not my oldest, but my third oldest is 13 years old. And it was his birth that catapulted me into even going into doula work. My first son's birth, he's 18. He'll be 19 this year. So I've almost been doing this work for 20 years because he was the first home birth. And after that birth experience, I looked up at that midwife, but I said, I think I want to become a midwife. And I've been studying for years, talking about 20 years, 19, 18 years. Okay? I'm not a person who's going to be sitting here and trying to be at the seat of every woman to watch her have her baby. Not at this juncture in my life. Maybe as I get older and my skills will come into play there. But right now, I'm the woman who's up here. I'm on the crown. I'm on the top of her head. I'm on your head because I want you to get your mindset to shift into the capacity of what it is that you were designed to put on this planet to do. The in tune mother, all of that was about me being in tune. And in my own attunement, it brought me to the beehive, because in my own research as an anthropologist, I was researching human civilization and cultivation and sustainability, and it kept leading me back to honeybees. Okay, all these bee goddesses and all these ways that people worship the honeybee back in the day. So henceforth, I give birth to my fourth son, and I say, well, I'm about to create this company, Beehive Birth Consulting, because I didn't want to just be in the space of like just providing services. No, I'm a consultant. I consult with birth workers, parents, families, right? Companies, organizations, to help individuals to learn how to lean into more sustainable practices. And the most sustainable practice to be consistent with is what is in your immediate environment. What can you use in your immediate environment? What tools do you already have? Because the more we ask for the things that we don't really need versus the things that we look around and say, well, what do I already have? Those are things that are supportive to you. Because when we continue to look out and say, oh, well, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, I need that, you pushing yourself as far away from conservation as possible. Where what the honeybees taught me is that conservation is close and near and dear and vital. And when we don't have that connection to community, to prosperity, to longevity, we die fast, hard, okay? And so that's something that we have to really be able to deal with within our community, is that our learned helplessness, our identities to our bodies, our messaging that we've been programmed to believe subconsciously about our bodies is the killer. That's what kills your goals. That's what kills your motivation. That's what kills your dreams. That's what kills your relationships. That's what kills your money. So this 30-day challenge for Pretty Fit is not just to say, oh, well, I'm about to get my body right. I mean, it's that, but it's also about consistency. And what I learned is that when we don't have consistency in our lives, it's because, or when we have inconsistencies in our lives, it's because we're not choosing consistency. It's that simple. You want consistency, get up at early in the morning, because you can't say, oh, well, my kids, or I had to go to work, or whatever. Make time. Get up earlier. Get up an hour earlier. Spend 30 minutes doing your workout. You ain't even got to spend 30 minutes. You could do it in 2 to 3 minutes a day. I jump rope. My jump rope takes me about 2 minutes, if that. And I'm 100 jumps to get my blood circulating and moving. I'm on my feet. I'm on my root chakra. Your root chakra is really in your feet. If y'all been in the Pretty Period community, y'all know that we didn't talk about this. The root chakra is not necessarily in your genitals. It's in your feet, because your feet are rooted to the ground and it goes up. So your legs, your knees, your buttocks, all of that is your root chakra. And then it sends energy up, 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 up. Okay? So we're going to be doing this workout because we're going to challenge ourselves to get consistent. We're going to challenge ourselves to have a consistent mindset to do something for ourselves every single day. And it doesn't mean that they got to be working out. Sometimes you just might need to sit on the mat and cry. Sometimes you might need to just listen to your body and say, what sensations or feelings am I feeling right now? And speak to that. And say, why am I feeling this way? Ask your body and it'll tell you. It might tell you you're overworking. You're not speaking up for yourself. You're not using your sacred nose. You're not practicing intentional yes. And I already went over my time because I was only supposed to be over here for 5 minutes. But here I am. And it's almost 17 minutes in. But I hope y'all feel this and y'all respond to this video in a way that lets me know that y'all support what it is that we're getting ready to do here. Because the issue at hand is that inconsistency breeds inconsistency. If you don't have a consistent pattern or repetition or rhythm, you are going to continue to breed that. And Black maternal health shows us that. If we want the numbers to change, we've got to change the narrative around the numbers. We've got to change the narrative around the way that we identify with the underlying issue. It's not always the physician. Sometimes it's your own personal practice. And I hope this helps somebody today. And I look forward to seeing y'all in the school platform so that we can get this shit in, because 2026 is all about getting pretty fit. Love, light, liberation. Stay pretty. Peace.